When Juliet Cross stepped into the conference room, her presence hit like a cold gust of wind. Perfect posture designer heels and the smug look of someone who'd never heard no in her life. She offered a curt nod to the team, her gaze scanning the table until it landed on me. I was mid-sentence halfway through the Q2 market expansion rollout and instinctively paused. "Claire," she said, voice syrupy and loud enough to interrupt. "You can sit now. I'll take it from here." The room froze. No one moved, not even Gregory Cross, who sat at the head of the table like a statue. I closed my binder, slowly refusing to drop my eyes. Juliet smiled thin and sharp. "From now on, you'll report directly to me." She knew what she was doing. She wanted the message clear. She wasn't just back, she was above me. What no one else in the room knew, though, was that this wasn't our first collision. A year ago, I had been a finalist for Vice President of Global Strategy, a role I'd earned through years of turnaround projects and landing Eastbridge Global as a client. But the day before the final decision, a confidential internal review surfaced, criticizing my delegation and leadership under pressure. It was unsigned, anonymous, and it killed the promotion. Only 2 people had access to that review system outside HR, Gregory Cross and Juliet. At the time, she'd been consulting remotely from Spain, a vague placeholder job title meant to explain her absence from anything resembling real work. I'd let it go, buried the disappointment under my usual armor of professionalism. But now watching her glide into the spotlight, I saw it. The same smirk she'd worn back then when she sat in on a meeting she had no reason to attend, asking loaded questions only someone gunning for my job would ask. And here she was again, only this time no veil, no subtle sabotage. Full control. She finished the rest of my presentation word for word using my slides, my data, my hours of prep like it had all fallen out of her head. Not a single acknowledgement. When she closed the deck, she turned and said, "Any questions?" No one spoke. Not even me. But that night, I opened a new folder on my private drive. I named it Gold Dossier. By the end of her first week, Juliet had rewritten half our workflows and scheduled back-to-back alignment meetings, where she repeated things I'd already implemented, only louder, and with a logo slapped on top. The strategic roadmaps I'd spent months refining suddenly had her initials in the metadata. She repackaged them, she said, polished the language. In meetings, she questioned everything. Why use that vendor, Claire? Have we considered a more aggressive model? Are you sure those metrics are accurate? I answered each one calmly, directly, not rising to the bait, but the effect was deliberate. She didn't want solutions. She wanted doubt. And she wanted it planted where it could grow in front of VPs, directors, and the board's executive liaison who'd started attending our briefings more frequently on her request. The team noticed. People started watching me in meetings the way you'd watch someone standing too close to a fire. On Thursday, I walked into the analytics portal before our 11 a.m. review. The dashboard looked off. Our product lead time had dropped by 22%, something I knew wasn't true. I clicked the data trail. Adjusted inputs, no audit log, no timestamp of the change. But the dashboard had Juliet's admin ID embedded. I took a screenshot. Then I took another, and I backed up the original metrics to an encrypted USB. That night, I stayed late. Alone in the dark conference room, I copied every version of the Q2 performance data I could find. One by one. Dates, deltas, users. I wasn't sure what I'd need yet, but I knew this was no longer about influence. This was erasure. The next morning, I ran into Alaric Green outside the break room. He handed me my usual coffee without asking and said quietly, "You're in her way, Claire. That makes you a target." I nodded. I know. He looked around. "Just be careful. She's not here to prove herself. She's here to replace someone." I didn't say a word, but when I walked back to my desk, I opened my calendar and cleared space for one meeting legal prep. Juliet didn't knock. She pushed the door open like she owned the hinges, a manicured hand gripping a crisp sheet of paper. Let's cut some dead weight, she said, tossing the list onto my desk. I didn't pick it up right away. I let it sit there like a threat written in Helvetica. Eventually, I glanced down. 4 names, all mid-level managers, all women, and all from my department. My eyes stopped on the last name, Tessa Jimenez. Tessa. I asked, my voice steady. She just secured the NARA contract. That deal alone kept us from outsourcing 2 whole departments. Juliet rolled her eyes. She's difficult, passive-aggressive, always side-eyeing me in meetings. She saved this company $1.2 million in 1 quarter, I said. That's not attitude. That's competence. Juliet leaned in, voice low but sharp. This isn't a debate, Claire. It's an executive directive. I folded my arms. I won't fire someone based on your feelings. Her face flushed. For a moment, I thought she'd scream, but instead, she smiled a smile full of venom. Then I'll tell my father you refused a direct order. There it was. Not policy, not metrics, just raw, unfiltered nepotism wrapped in entitlement. The real game wasn't about streamlining teams or maximizing performance. It was about eliminating anyone who made her feel small. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. When she turned and walked out, heels clicking like gunshots on tile, I opened my drawer and unlocked the portable drive tucked beneath a stack of old reports. Then I took the list she'd left behind and added it to the folder already growing larger by the day. Inside screenshots, altered metrics, deleted comments from team forums, flagged compliance issues, and now a printed hit list with one of our best employees at the top. I renamed the file Gold Dossier V2. That night, after most had left, I sent a message to Mira Zheng in HR. Are you free for coffee tomorrow? No agenda. Just need to talk. Then I closed my laptop and walked out past the glowing windows of an office that suddenly didn't feel like mine anymore. The reception was held on the rooftop terrace, all brushed steel and champagne flutes. I made the rounds answering questions from investors, shaking hands with our partners, and accepting praise from clients who'd seen their shipments arrive on time for the first time in months. It wasn't loud praise, but it was consistent, genuine. Eastbridge's rep even pulled me aside and said, "Whatever you're doing with delivery logistics, keep doing it." Across the crowd, Juliet lingered near the open bar in a sapphire silk dress that probably cost more than my quarterly bonus. Her smile never quite reached her eyes. She lifted a glass toward me from across the room. I returned the gesture with a neutral nod. That night, sometime past 10, a calendar alert buzzed onto my phone. Meeting 1-1 with CEO urgent. 8:30 a.m. I didn't sleep much. When I stepped into Gregory's office the next morning, Juliet was already there, legs crossed, arms folded, waiting like a prosecutor. Gregory sat behind his desk, hands clasped, not looking at me. "She's been undermining my leadership," Juliet said before I could sit. "She disregards my directives. She spreads doubt with the team." I stayed standing. I disagreed with firing Tessa. "That's not undermining, that's protecting your bottom line." Juliet's voice sharpened. "If she stays, I'll walk, and I'll make sure the merger falls apart. You think Eastbridge is loyal to the brand? They're loyal to me." Gregory finally met my gaze. His eyes looked tired. "Claire," he began, voice quiet, hesitant. "I think I have to let you go." He wasn't angry. He wasn't even apologetic, just resigned, as if my career, my work was a file to be archived for convenience. I didn't speak right away. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. "I'd like you to check your email," I said. "Now." He blinked. "Claire, this isn't the time." "It is," I said, "because once you open that folder, you'll realize this is much bigger than a disagreement between co-workers." Gregory's fingers hovered above the keyboard, hesitating just long enough for the silence to stretch. I didn't move. I didn't blink. "Claire?" he said cautiously. "This isn't the way. Check your inbox," I repeated. Something in my tone must have cut through because he finally turned to his monitor and clicked. 2 seconds later, his expression shifted. The blood drained from his face. He opened the folder titled Cross Misconduct. I watched him click through the contents, Slack transcripts where Juliet mocked disabled employees for slowing down workflow, called one intern a pity hire, and joked that HR complaints only exist for weaklings. Then came the budget spreadsheets, redlined and revised outside the proper channels, formulas rewritten to inflate efficiency margins, procurement logs edited without review. He clicked again. There in full audio was Juliet offering a procurement rep 2 VIP concert tickets in exchange for fast-tracking a vendor she had personal ties to. Then finally a batch of HR complaints, 3 specifically, filed against Juliet over the last 18 months, all missing from the formal system, recovered by IT at my request, flagged, time-stamped. Gregory leaned back slowly, one hand rising to his mouth. "You kept all this," he whispered. "Yes," I said, my voice low even, because I knew I'd need it one day. He sat very still, like someone trying to figure out where the trap was too late to avoid it, but still hoping to soften the fall. "This is damning," he muttered. "It's documented," I corrected, "and it's real. Unlike her title. Unlike the fantasy she's built here." Gregory didn't respond. Not right away. His eyes were still locked on the screen. I could tell he wasn't just seeing Juliet's misconduct, he was seeing his own silence. The quiet approvals, the promotions she didn't earn, the damage he let her do because it was easier than saying no. I let him sit with it. I'd waited long enough. Finally, he stood up, shoulders heavy. "I'll need time to review all of this." "You don't have time," I said. "Because this isn't just a personal file. It's already with HR and legal." 3 weeks before Gregory opened that email, I sat across from Mira Zhang at a quiet cafe 2 blocks from the office. It was raining hard enough to drive most people indoors, which was exactly why I chose that day. Mira stirred her tea 3 times before speaking. "Juliet is dangerous," she said finally. "Not just incompetent dangerous." "I know," I replied, pulling out a small folder from my bag. "And I have proof." She looked through the first few pages without blinking. Altered reports, redacted complaints, Slack screenshots. When she reached the compliance flags, she exhaled slowly. "I figured something was happening," she said, "but I didn't know how deep it ran." "She's not just rewriting metrics," I said. "She's rewriting people." Later that same afternoon, I met with Deshaun Rowe in his office. He locked the door before I even said a word. Once I started showing him the file, he shook his head. "Claire, if this goes public, it doesn't just take Juliet down, it burns Gregory too." "I'm not trying to destroy them," I said. "I'm trying to stop what's already destroying the company." He sat back, eyes thoughtful. "We'll need it airtight. Timeline Digital Trails chain of custody. We spent 4 nights after hours compiling everything. Mira reviewed complaint procedures and flagged every deviation. Deshaun organized the materials into a whistleblower dossier, time-stamped, formatted, and protected. It was clean, sharp, lethal. Twist 4 wasn't mine. It was ours. We agreed on one thing: if I got pushed out, they'd go straight to the board. Not out of loyalty to me, but out of principle. "She's not a liability anymore," Deshaun had said. "She's a legal risk." They didn't want recognition. They didn't want credit. They just wanted to work somewhere that didn't reward proximity to power more than integrity. So when Gregory saw the folder and realized it wasn't just me standing behind it, he also saw them. That's why I didn't flinch when he said he'd need time. He didn't have any, because Mira and Deshaun had already submitted the full report to the board that morning. The official email hit my inbox at 8:12 a.m. Subject: administrative leave. Effective immediately. No explanation, no details. Just a sterile sentence announcing that I was, for all intents and purposes, out. I sat back in my chair, staring at it. There was no anger, no panic, only confirmation. This was the move Gregory had chosen. Whether it was to appease Juliet, delay judgment, or preserve his own image, I didn't know. But it didn't matter anymore. At 9:00 a.m., Sharp, Mira, and Deshawn submitted the dossier to the board. I didn't have to be in the room to feel its weight land. I could sense the ripple in the building. Meetings were rescheduled, doors closed, executive assistants suddenly went quiet. At 9:26 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mira board meeting went south. Juliet tried to blame you. Didn't work. I smiled faintly. She must have panicked when cornered, probably tried to spin a narrative where I'd orchestrated the whole thing to sabotage her. But the dossier didn't leave room for stories. It was dates, actions, names. It was truth with a timestamp. At 9:41, the second wave hit. Eastbridge Global Holdings sent a formal letter to Gregory and the board. I didn't see the letter directly, but word traveled fast. The message was simple and loud enough to echo through every corner office. If Claire Patterson is removed, Eastbridge will terminate all future contracts, effective immediately. It wasn't just a statement of loyalty. It was a calculated business move. They didn't trust Juliet. They never had. And without me, there was no one left they believed in. That was twist 5, not the report, not the complaints, but the clients finally saying out loud what everyone else had whispered for months. At 10:15 a.m., Gregory tried calling me. I didn't answer. At 10:17, he tried again. By the third call, I picked up. His voice was tight-controlled, trying to sound calm. "Claire, I think we need to talk." Gregory's voice on the phone was stripped of all the polish he usually carried in meetings. No commanding tone, no corporate phrasing. "The board asked Juliet to resign," he said quietly. "I'm stepping back, voluntarily." I didn't respond immediately. I let the silence do what it needed to. We met in his office that evening. For once, the room didn't feel like a throne room. His suit jacket was off sleeves, rolled, face drawn. There was no Juliet beside him, no shield of pretense. "She's gone," he said. "Packed up this afternoon. They'll release a statement next week, something about a transition and new ventures." I nodded. "And what about you? I'm taking a leave," he replied. The board insisted. They want to evaluate executive oversight before the next quarter. I studied him. "You didn't lose this company, Gregory. You gave it away, one blind favor at a time." He looked down, then back up again. "You were always the strongest person in the room. I just pretended not to see it." That admission didn't move me. Not anymore. I wasn't looking for remorse. I was negotiating terms. "I'll return," I said, "but on my terms, not yours, not anyone's." He nodded. "What do you want?" 3 things I said. First, a written policy, 0 tolerance for nepotism in leadership roles. Second, quarterly executive audits, real ones reviewed by the board, not buried in summaries. Third, full operational autonomy over the international division. No interference. Gregory leaned back, considering. "The board will push back." "They won't," I replied. "Not with Eastbridge watching. Not after what almost happened." He exhaled slowly. "All right. I'll make it happen." "No," I corrected. "You'll step aside and let the board make it happen. From here on, it's about accountability, not legacy." He didn't argue. When I left his office, I didn't feel triumphant, just ready. By morning, a formal reinstatement notice had landed in my inbox, signed by the board, not Gregory, and beneath it, a request attend the executive strategy session as acting VP of Global Operations. When I stepped back into the building, everything looked the same marble floors, same front desk, same scent of 2 strong citrus from the janitorial crew. But the air felt different, lighter, like something had been pulled from the foundation and thrown out for good. Juliet's nameplate was gone. Her office was empty blinds, open desk cleared, only a faint smudge where her name had been. I didn't stop to look inside. Instead, I walked straight to the operations room where my team was already gathered. Some stood, some sat, some looked unsure of what came next. I saw Tessa in the back, arms folded but eyes bright. I didn't give a speech, no theatrics, no corporate speak. I want to be clear, I said. From today on, no legacy name, no family title will outrank competence. What matters is your work, your integrity, and you'll be protected for doing the right thing. For a moment, silence. Then applause. Not loud, not performative, just honest. A few people exchanged relieved glances. Tessa blinked hard, then smiled through tears. Over the next 2 weeks, the changes came in quiet waves. 3 clients who had gone radio silent after my removal came back with signed renewals. One of them sent a handwritten note, "Leadership matters. Glad to see yours returned." Eastbridge Global issued a public statement reaffirming our partnership. 5 years locked in. They'd never done that before. It was a signal not just to us, but to anyone watching that the company had found its footing again. Staff meetings started ending early. For the first time in a year, no one was defending bad data or faking enthusiasm. People spoke up again. People laughed in hallways. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't fast. But it was real. I spent my afternoons rebuilding trust, not just with clients, but with employees who'd quietly suffered under the old culture. Some confessed things they'd been too scared to report. Some just thanked me for staying. But I knew the work wasn't done yet. A week later, I received an invitation to dinner from the board. It was marked confidential. No agenda listed, just a time and a place. The dinner was held in a private room at a quiet restaurant near the river. No media, no branding, no company logos. Just 12 board members, a linen-covered table, and 1 empty seat waiting for me. They didn't make small talk. The chairman, a tall man with a voice like gravel, opened the evening with a simple statement. "Claire, we'd like to make your leadership permanent, Vice President of Global Strategy, effective immediately." I didn't say yes right away. I took a breath, looked around the table, and saw them for who they were, leaders who'd once looked past me now, watching closely, cautiously respectful. "I'll accept," I said, "but only if 3 conditions are added to my contract." No one interrupted. 1, zero tolerance for nepotism in leadership roles. Not informal, not suggested policy. 2 quarterly accountability audits for all executives reviewed independently. 3, full operational autonomy for international strategy. No interference, no reshuffling, no shadow approvals. The chairman nodded, agreed. A week later, I signed the contract. I didn't celebrate. I didn't throw a party. I just returned to work and kept building. Meanwhile, Juliet surfaced in Austin, tucked inside some luxury startup incubator, pitching an app that no one understood and investors only pretended to care about. A few photos made their way through LinkedIn, her in sunglasses, holding a tablet, smiling wide. But the eyes weren't the same. The audience wasn't either. She would burn through her trust fund chasing applause she no longer knew how to earn. And Gregory. He submitted a resignation letter shortly after my promotion was announced, citing personal realignment. The company thanked him for his past contributions in a 6-line memo that was buried by lunchtime. As for me, I didn't take a new office. I stayed where I was, same desk, same team. The title changed, but the work didn't. When you build your future on fear and entitlement, it only takes one person with character to end it. Power isn't in the corner office or the title on your badge. It's in the trust you earn when you choose to lead with truth. And that's what lasts.